Yesterday, when we were talking about the subject of Attasama Paniti, conducting oneself in the right way, we said that by having cultivated mind, we are bound to behave our physical and verbal behaviors correctly. And by just controlling the mind, one can control one's physical and verbal behaviors. They are said to be automatically controlled. Hence, the virtues of the ancient virtues, said that by shaping the mind, the body becomes beautiful. Or by shaping the mind, the body also can be properly shaped. This is in accordance with the Buddha's teachings. However, by having a good mentality, it is not enough by just practicing what is known as the intellectual reasoning. One needs to empower mental energies. For instance, with the practice of Patisankhana Bala, the power of intellectual reasoning, you can control your mind, and you can, to some extent, do things physically and verbally, both for yourself and for others, so that yourself and others will gain prosperity and benefit. And also, you have to reflect upon the suitability of an undertaking. And if you can reflect in this way, you're bound to improve your mind. So, if an undertaking is not beneficial and not suitable, you should not undertake it. You should not do it. So, but by just reflecting, intellectual reflection, you cannot energize your mind fully. We need to practice Satipatthana Bhavana in order to empower our energies, so that we need to practice to cultivate our mind with the practice of Satipatthana. Then only we will be able to energize our mind. In this way, we initiate the practice to purify our mind and then develop it so that it becomes fully developed. It becomes great, enhanced and developed. Such is the practice of bhavana mind, the power of meditative practice, in order to cultivate one's mind and insight. Satipatthana Bhavana is the correct method. That is the method which the yogis are practicing now. Only then, that is with the practice of Satipatthana Bhavana, you will be able to empower your mind so that it becomes enhanced and developed, becomes strengthened, becomes powerful. So, by just controlling the mind or cultivating the mind, you can cultivate your physical and verbal behaviors. In this way, your physical and verbal behaviors will be properly cultivated. Such is the cultivation or practice of bhavana mind, the meditative mind. Hence, the saying, by shaping the mind, the body is also shaped. That is, the physical and verbal behaviors will be properly cultivated. So, that's why we need to practice Satipatthana Bhavana respectfully and carefully, so that we'll be able to sustain our mindfulness. Hence, we said yesterday that one should practice the mental powers which are to be practiced before mindfulness, prior to sati mindfulness, and also to practice these mental powers during the moment of sati or mindfulness. Today we shall talk about how by just controlling the mind we can control other behaviors. In all these activities or manners, mind is always in the forefront. It is the forerunner, and that's why we have to keep the mind on the right track, giving attention correctly, so that the mind is on the right path. That is, with the practice of Satipatthana Bhavana, we are putting the mind on the right path, giving correct attention by guarding the mind with vigilant mindfulness of whatever arises, as we discussed yesterday. So, even with the practice, in every mindfulness, even if we do not cultivate knowledge, we are concentrating our mind on the object, which can be said to be satisfactory, aiming or focusing, which is known as vitakka, has to be practiced, so that the noting mind is concurrent with the object of attention, so that the noting mind will not overshoot the object. We practice this power of focusing as much as we do, we are bound to be free from wrongful thoughts, such as thoughts of sense desires, kama vitakka, thoughts of ill will, vyabhada vitakka, and thoughts of harming others, vihimsa vitakka. So we'll be free from these perverted thoughts which can arise if we are not mindful. So this is just one power, mental power, that we are achieving with the practice of aiming or focusing. And also, we are not giving the hindrances to progress a chance to arise in our stream of consciousness. And also, we apply energy, the driving force, known as virya, so that the noting mind will reach the object of attention every second of the time. If we practice like this for 1 minute at the rate of 1 concentration per second, we can be concentrating our mind quite a lot. By not accepting the impurities, we are said to be overcoming them. Not giving them a place, not accepting them, we are said to be abandoning, or they are said to be abandoned from our stream of consciousness. In a sense, we are blocking the path to unwholesomeness and opening the path to wholesomeness or skillfulness. So in this way, If we apply these two things, two mental powers, we are bound to achieve many benefits. For instance, with the application of the power of focusing or aiming, known as Vitakka, because Vitakka is the opposite of sluggishness or laziness, we are overcoming laziness with the application of this Vitakka, aiming or focusing. As for the beginners, as for the beginning yogis, this laziness or sluggishness is a close internal enemy. In the practice of high-level discipline, we cultivate insight and knowledge, insight and mind and insight. We need to overcome this laziness. Now, without this application of Vitakka, the mind tends to shrink and become lazy, especially in the practice of this high-level discipline of the way of mindfulness. One can be slack, one can slack the mind in the practice. Now we are practicing this Satipatthana Bhavana. If we slack in our practice, then we will be far away from the realization of our goal, that is the path and fruition knowledge of the Noble Ones. That's why this laziness is the opposite to our practice. Now, as for the mind, the naughty mind, in the beginning, it is not so much familiar with the natural phenomena that we are noting, the objects that we are noting. They are said to be strangers. The mind is a stranger to the natural phenomena. So this natural phenomena, or the objects of intrinsic nature, cannot be observed by mere reflection, or by mere reading, by mere learning from the books, or by mere thoughts. It can only be realized, it can only be observed with the practice of Satipatthana Bhavana. Then only the naughty mind will become familiar with the natural phenomena. By taking an aim at the object, so that the naughty mind is concurrent on the object of attention. This is Vitakka, aiming. With the power of aiming, the naughty mind will be sustained on the object of attention, as though the naughty mind is rubbing or rubs around the object to be noted, that is the natural phenomena. As much as one focuses one's naughty mind, the naughty mind is bound to be sustained on the object of attention, so that it will not be removed from that object. And also we are applying this energy, the driving force, and with the result that the naughty mind will be sustained on the object of attention, giving rise to deepening of concentration, so that with the application of these mental powers, we are bound to gain the benefit. Now the Vitakka, the power of aiming or focusing, is also called Samma Sankappa. It is right thought or right aim. That is, when you are practicing mindfulness, when you watch your abdomen and note rising of the abdomen, you are bound to observe these natural phenomena such as stiffness, tension and movement in the course of mindfulness of rising. And when you note falling, you're bound to observe the natural phenomena in the form of relaxation, movement, and so on. You're bound to observe these things. Then your noting mind is said to have become familiar with the natural phenomena that you are noting. The noting mind becomes, or this vidaka, aiming, the power of aiming or focusing, becomes an intermediary, go between the noting mind and the object. So, because the noting mind is concurrent with the object, it becomes familiar with these natural phenomena. So, in this way, this vidaka opposes, or vidaka overcomes wrongful thoughts, mecha vidakas, and also it can cause the cultivation of knowledge, observing the true nature of the objects. In this way also, it becomes familiar with the natural phenomena. And with the application of ardent energy, not with slackness, but with wakefulness and alertness, we are overcoming sluggishness or laziness. Whenever we encounter situations when we tend to become lazy, we apply this energy. Vidaka and energy are very important. These two mental powers are extremely important. Hence, the meditation teachers always exhort the yogis at interviews to be able to focus your noting mind and apply the heroic energy in order to sustain your mindfulness, so that yogis are bound to progress in their practice. When we are practicing this high-level discipline of the way of mindfulness, Satipatthana Bhavana, if we don't possess this mental power known as Atapa Lalavariya, that is exertion of energy, ardent energy, or even if we possess to some extent, if it is not sufficient, we may be becoming lazy, with slackness, not wishing to exert energy, and even if we exert energy, we soon get exhausted, like a sick person, like the case of when you are putting butter in the fridge, or when you cool the butter down, it will congeal and become solidified, it becomes solid. So to melt it, you have to apply heat. So this Chinameda, that is not wishing to exert energy or getting exhausted even if you exert energy, are the opposite of this Virya, energy, Adapalalavriya, the heat of energy. So you need to apply this heat of energy in order to overcome this sloth and torpor all the time. Every time you are practicing. That's why in the text are given this, if the heat of energy is not applied, then the mind tends to shrink and retract from the practice, like the case of butter getting congealed with the cold. So this becomes a great hindrance for the beginners. So in order to overcome this laziness, we need to apply two mental powers, namely vidaka, focusing, aiming or focusing, and energy every second of the practice. Hence, the meditation teachers always exhort the yogis to practice mindfulness of every arising, beginning with the main object, with the power of focusing, that is aiming and noting mind towards the object energetically, which is very important. Once you are able to apply these two mental powers proportionately, then you will not miss this arising object. Instead, the noting mind will be sustained on the object of attention, as though it rubs the object or it penetrates or sinks into the object, giving rise to sustain the mindfulness, sati. You don't need to look for sati. You don't need to practice to get sati. But once you apply these two mental powers, then namely aiming or focusing, and energy, this mindfulness will be automatically sustained on the object of attention. So as much as you apply these two mental powers, your sati, noting mindfulness, will be sustained. For 1 minute, if we take 1 sati per second, or even if we take 1 sati in 2 seconds, we are bound to realize this mindfulness, moments of mindfulness 60 times or 30 times, as the case may be. Such are the benefits of the practice. By applying these two mental powers, then with the mindfulness, the noting mind will be sustained on object of attention. In this way, the power of sati is to prevent impurities from arising or protect your mind from impurities. Or it blocks the path to the entry of impurities into your stream of consciousness. Once you are protected in this way, there will be no impurities arising in your stream of consciousness. There will be no hindrance. Thus you will be secure from bondage, known as goti. And as much as you are secure from bondage of these impurities, there will be no agitation. Instead, there will be peace, known as santi, and freedom. You get freedom from these impurities. It is after when you are secure, you are free. And when you are free, you become peaceful, santi. And you build up this santi, you build up the moments of peace in order to realize happiness. Such are the power of mindfulness. Such are the benefits of mindfulness. So, with the application of mindfulness, the noting mind will fall calm and collected on the object of attention, giving rise to concentration. The samadhi, which is a characteristic of not scattering, not distraction, no restlessness. Instead, the noting mind falls collected and unified on the object of attention. Such is samadhi, concentration. So in this way, you are empowering these mental energies by making a practice of it, habit of it. Thus, the noting mind will be concurrent with the object automatically with the practice, like the shooting range, with the practice of shooting practice, leading to samma sankappa, the right aim or right thought. As much as the noting mind is concurrent with the object, you are bound to gain this benefit or realize samadhi, the right view or right understanding. That is cultivating knowledge. So in this way, you are energizing these mental powers. You become fulfilled with it. Such is given by the expression sampatti, prosperity or success. By practicing with the practice, you are developing it, enhancing it, so that you become fulfilled with the necessary mental powers, such as sampatti, prosperity or success. In this way, you are rotating upon you the wheel of success or prosperity. We were able to realize this or practice to succeed in this way every time we practice. We'll be able to realize this prosperity known as sampatti. But this kind of practice is not, this kind of sampatti, prosperity is not gained without doing anything for freely. One has got to practice regularly. That is the practice of meditative, cultivation of meditative energy, bhavana energy, which in a sense is known as sampatti, prosperity or success. So that every time you are practicing this sampatti, bhavana energy, it will be different in the sense that you are progressing, cultivating knowledge, and in this way you will be able to overcome these unwholesome roots and the wrongdoing as a result of these unwholesome roots. For instance, if you are not mindful, when you encounter objects or things which may cause greed, especially extreme case of greed, you may be committing wrongdoing physically and verbally. Again, when you encounter things or experiences which may cause hatred or anger, you may be committing wrongdoing physically and verbally. And also, if you are not able to see things in their true nature, if you are not mindful of objects, you'll be deluded, not knowing things clearly, you become stupid, so that you'll be committing stupid physical and verbal behaviors. Now, with the practice of this bhavana mind, empowering this bhavana meditative energy, succeeding in the practice, just imagine if just imagine an ill-directed mind will cause physical, verbal misbehaviors. Now you are purifying the mind. A pure mind will give rise to pure physical and verbal behaviors, so that they will become properly shaped. Such is the practical result of the practice. So one has got to practice respectfully and carefully, not just in a marginal way or slack way. If you don't practice or follow these instructions respectfully and carefully or seriously, then you'll be slack and marginal in your practice. So you become slack yogi or marginal yogi, which if somebody sees you, then will not look nice. You will not be, you will not look like a yogi or behaving as a yogi. If nobody sees, the devas, the celestial beings who are here in this center will see you. So, if you are not practicing respectfully and carefully in this practice of high-level discipline, people will hold you in low esteem, with low esteem, especially the celestial beings. This practice is the most valuable, the greatest practice that you can come across. It is most beneficial and most essential for everybody. So it is necessary to practice seriously, respectfully and carefully, not in a very light manner, slack manner, by looking here and there, not behaving like a yogi. So if you do not behave like a yogi, then there will be no progress. It will be status quo. That is the same. You will be the same as when you came here. If you are not practicing carefully, even if you practice for 1 month or 2 months, it will be the same. So you have to do it as you should. You should as a yogi to behave like a yogi. Then only it will be satisfactory. Otherwise, if you are practicing not carefully, if you are not practicing carefully, then you will not be a satisfactory yogi. Especially as you have come from a far distance, from far away, it is necessary to practice seriously. So this is the teaching where by just controlling the mind, you can control your physical and verbal behaviors. You cannot find this anywhere else, anywhere except in the Buddha's teachings. This is the practice to win victory over yourself. In ordinary life, there are no such practices to win victory over yourself. Instead, you are not only losing to yourself, but also harming others. Now this is the art of winning victory over yourself. By noting continuously, you are energizing your bhavana mind. As is said, adi kusalam bhavediti bhavana. Because you are practicing high-level practice of wholesomeness, it is known as bhavana, mental development. So you need to practice in this spirit, so that after you have initiated the practice, you should enhance it, develop it, make it grow, so that your mind will become very powerful, not agitated by impurities such as raga, craving, or lust, or dosa, aversion or anger, because your naughty mind is continuous. May you be able to behave in this manner. That's all.